Okay, well, there's a story behind this that I'm going to be preaching on today. Actually, it's more of a teaching than a preaching. And usually that's what ends up happening when I'm up here anyway. I think I've preached maybe once. Most of this is an answer to questions. There's a lot of questions in this body. People have questions about their spiritual lives and whether they're drowning or if they're swimming or are they just, treading water. There's a lot of questions. So, the Lord woke me up one morning, I guess it was about 4 a.m., and He gave me this word. And I'm going to try to answer some of the questions in the process of giving this word, okay? So I've had quite a few questions about development. We have spiritual development. We develop a relationship with the Lord. And most of us, in our minds, we think that our development is going to look like this. Okay, this is a graph. This is when we first get saved. And over time, say 10 years, we think that's how our growth looks, or it's supposed to look. And when it doesn't match up to that, we have an issue. Guess what? It's not supposed to look like that. That's right, man. If it looks like that, something's wrong. Something is woefully wrong. Okay? So I'm going to correct it. That was different. In the beginning, as you can see, there's a high acceleration of excitement about the Lord. And it kind of plateaus off. Now, when you were first saved, every time you prayed, your prayer was answered. Yeah. The Lord would wake you up and whisper sweet nothings in your ear, whether it was in the pages of the Bible or whether it was literally in your spirit man. You'd get excited. You'd have a word for Susie Q. You'd have a word for brother so-and-so. Running up to him, the Lord told me to tell you. We do this stuff because we're excited about the Lord and we want to share what He's doing in our lives. And we want other people to be blessed. And that's normal. But after we've been a Christian for a while, you notice what happens? See this big dip right here? Oh, boy. The honeymoon is over. You pray and you pray and you pray and you feel like you hit a wall. And you go, Lord, I haven't sinned. I'm not in sin. What's going on? What's wrong with me? It's called the desert experience. It's well documented. It usually happens between, this is your born again age, okay? Between 1 and 3 years of age. And it can last as long as 5 years on average. Most people, it just takes a year or so. But it just depends on what God is doing in your life. Because each of us as individuals, we're very different from one another. And God deals with us that way. But it is a pattern. We go into this dip and we begin to feel lost. We're confused. We think God has turned His back on us. I want to comfort you and let you know He still loves you. He still loves you. He's after you. He's doing this for your good. We never get strong if our moms keep feeding us breast milk. Think about it. How's that going to nourish a bodybuilder? Big old football player, and he's trying to drink mother's milk. That doesn't work. So we have to develop some muscles. We get the muscles during a time of stress, during the time that we're concerned, we're wringing our hands, we're going, oh my God, have I left God? I haven't backslid. I haven't done any outrageous sins. But these things are normal. These feelings are normal because God comes back in. And He sweeps us off our feet again. We go back up and start accelerating again. And the pattern repeats over and over throughout our Christian life. So I'm saying that because I've had about 4 or 5 people in this body come up to me because they're in the desert. And they were concerned. They were fearful that they were losing their salvation or they had done something dramatically wrong. No. It's a period of testing our mental. I'm going to spell mental because I don't want anyone spelling it like silver and gold. I do this with my middle school class. I make sure they get the right spelling. It's a different word. It's mental. And strength. We need strength to make it through the big trials. And the big trials are coming. Some of you are newborns. I consider you a newborn if you're under 5. So I'm smiling at my sister over there because she's still a baby. But there is a need to build strength. But there's also a need to have wisdom about what you're going through. Okay? Another common question I've gotten, and this is really the body of the message, is about personal issues. All of us have personal issues. If you were raised in this world by a human being, you have issues. All of us have suffered wounds at one time or another, whether it was through a parent, both parents, no parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, school friends. We didn't get to adulthood without suffering some wounds. Unfortunately, those wounds cause issues in our relationship with the Lord. I want to see the hands of everyone in this place that's married. Raise your hand. All of you married people know this instinctively. Put your hands down. Remember when, before you got married, you used to hold hands all the time, look in each other's eyes. I want to be with you, baby. You the one for me. Baby. Till you found out, after you got married, of course, that he or she had issues. And it was like, oh no, what is this? We begin to see the jealousy, the insecurity, the anger issues. This microphone is not good. The anger issues. I'll repeat it. The anger issues. Why do I repeat it? Because in our community, in minority communities, there's a lot more domestic violence than at least what's publicized in the other communities.
Amen.
Can I get another mic? This is crazy.
Amen.
Those same issues that we have in marriage relationship with the Lord. You got an anger issue? Tell me that you've never pouted when God didn't move the way you thought he should move. We do it. I've done it. I'll tell you. Acted a fool. Just lost my mind. Then I started thinking, everybody turn to Job 38 real quick.
Well.
Yeah, let me bring that in.
There you go. Real issue.
I love this. Whenever I start to feel sorry for myself, I have to do this. Okay. Does everybody know the story of Job?
Yeah.
Job was worth about, I think I preached on this before actually, around $17 billion. And the way I figured that out is I actually priced sheep and camel and went by the numbers given in the beginning of Job and calculated it out.
Wow.
The man was rich and he had 10 children that he feared were not living godly lives. So he offered sacrifices on their behalf. And then the enemy came in and started talking to God, and, none of your people are faithful, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And God said, my man Job is faithful.
Yep.
And the enemy said, check that. Yeah, you remove some of that money that's girding him up and see how he acts. Okay, so in one day, Job loses everything, including his 10 children. And he goes through a process of mourning and grieving and anger and disappointment and what did I do wrong, Lord? And his friends come to sit with him and they call themselves comforting him. And the way they comfort him is by telling him he must have sinned against the Lord. This is just a little high, but this is good. He sinned against the Lord. And you will hear people in your walk who will say, if you didn't get a job or if you lost the job you already had, you must have sinned against the Lord. That's not true.
Amen.
I said that's not true.
That's right.
I want you to understand that negative things, what seems like it's negative things happen in our lives so that God can free us up for something else.
That's right.
Something better, something that is more in tune with our calling, something that is going to produce more fruit in us. Okay?
Amen.
Well, Job's friends didn't know this. And so they continued to berate him. Are you sure you haven't sinned? Well, in chapter 38, finally, God enters the conversation. And basically what he says is, where were you? I'm going to read the first few verses.
Please.
Verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Verse 3. Now gird up your loins like a man, and I will ask you, and you instruct me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched the line on it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who enclosed the sea with doors when bursting forth it went out from the womb? When I made a cloud its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and I placed boundaries on it, and I set a bolt and doors, and I said, thus far you shall come, but no further, and here shall your proud waves stop. I want all of you to think about the beach real quick. That's where the proud waves stop.
Yep.
That's where God drew the line. People, sometimes we overlook the fact that water is nothing but a bunch of molecules smashed together. Hydrogen and oxygen. And originally that water was free floating. It was in the atmosphere. It wasn't laying in an ocean. It was floating around. God had to set order on that. If he can control all those molecules, think of the billions, trillions, quadrillion Google number. And yes, Google is a number. For those of you who think it's only a search engine. It's a real number. Okay? It's a huge number. It's the biggest number you can imagine in your head. That's a lot of molecules. He brought them all in order. And you've even seen in Facebook and some other social media areas where they've had pictures of two oceans coming together, but the water is different colors, and you can see the lines separating the two oceans. That's God. I want you to know that there is a God, and he loves us. And he doesn't take us through anything just because it just seems like it would be fun. It does not entertain him. It bothers him to see us in pain. But he knows it's a necessary part of building his character into us.
Amen.
Sometimes we get a little high and mighty and we go, well, I haven't done anything wrong and I don't understand. And I've got a $500 a month payment on my car due, and I've got to pay rent of $1,800, and I got to, and we start looking at our circumstances and we feel indignant that God has allowed these things to happen to us. Where were you when I laid the foundation? It always brings me back to that humble position and remind me of what it's like to be in the hands of a God and trusting him implicitly, without reservation. It's hard. I have trouble. My cousin came for my birthday this week. She came from Missouri to spend the day with me. She's a pastor. She fussed at me so hard because I was out of order. I needed it. I needed that correction. And if you think you're a Christian, you never need correction. Something wrong with your thinking. My old pastor used to say, "Thinking, thinking, get you nowhere." All right, so brokenness can really bother our walk. It's going to affect these curves over here. It's going to affect the rate in which you develop. As I have said before, most of the people in this room are destined for ministry, not chair sitting.
Amen. Say that again.
Okay? Destined for ministry, which means each of you must share your faith with somebody else eventually. All right.
Amen.
It's hard to do, though, if you're hindered. Number one hindrances in this body are not the sins like bank robbery and murder and fornication, adultery, drug use. Not that those things don't exist. There are some who I'm sure, gone there. Hopefully not the bank robbery and murder. By the way, gossip is equal to murder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not making light of that. All right. The sins that I'm talking about right now are failure to carry out his will, failure to hear his voice, failure to obey, insecurity. That's a spiritual insecurity. It manifests emotionally, and lack of love.